Have you ever raged so bad over not finding an action figure that you almost ripped your shirt in half, but then stopped halfway because your broke ass can't afford another t-shirt? And not only that, nobody needs to see your ugly chest hairs. Well, maybe this video isn't for you, because not only will there be some major raging over some of these prices, but they're just really expensive action figures. We're going to be looking at the top 5 most expensive Venom Marvel Legends out there. And let me be clear, I'm going to try to keep this as varied as I possibly can. This isn't going to be all Toy Biz or all one specific Marvel Legend wave. I'm going to try to kind of vary it as much, because I did the Spider-Man video not too long ago, and they were all Toy Biz era Marvel Legends, or they were like older versions of the Marvel Legends line, and it just wasn't a really cool list. So I'm going to, clearly this is going to be the top 5, but I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit. Not so much just have a bunch of ancient old dusty action figures on the list, but yes, they are the top 5 most expensive, just varied a little bit here and there. Let me know your thoughts down below on the top 5 list. I've kind of been falling into a bit of a rabbit hole. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Do you guys enjoy them? Do you guys not? Let me know down below. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get straight into it with number 5. We have the Superior Venom. This is a figure that was released all the way back in 2015, which is officially, I guess, like 8 years ago. It's crazy how quickly time flies by when you're having this much fun. Now, this particular figure did have way more value back in the day, primarily because it was a part of the Rhino Build-A-Figure wave, and clearly this was before they decided to re-release the retro carded version, which eventually ended up really affecting the value of the Build-A-Figure version of Rhino. So for those people that want to keep tabs on value and for Build-A-Figures, but yeah, it ended up really dropping the value, because now you could pick up a slightly different version of Rhino for about like $40, and even if you had to go through like a third party, you would still pay about like maybe $50, which was much better than buying a used, already completed Build-A-Figure Rhino for like almost $200 at the time. You had the Diamond Select one, which was a little bit less expensive, but still there were a lot of knockoffs over there out in the third-party marketplace, so it was kind of difficult to buy. But again, I'm getting off topic. I'm rambling. I tend to do that. The Superior Venom, which is going for anywhere from about 90 all the way up to about 120, but I have seen some sales for a little bit lower than that. That's the main reason that he's at number 5. If you want an opened one that's in, okay condition, you'll probably have to pay about like $50 to $60, depending on what condition you want the figure to be in. But it's definitely a surprising entry because of all the different factors that have been happening, specifically the re-release of a Rhino, and yet somehow this figure still continues strong at about $100. Very surprising. But there you guys have it. That is number 5. Moving on to number 4, we have the Walgreens exclusive Marvel Legends Agent Venom. This figure, at least in my personal opinion, was essentially outdated the moment it got released. It had like this big giant overlay of soft plastic in the chest area, and aside from that, the articulation was just almost non-existent. It was definitely a very frustrating figure to pick up brand new and open it, try to get it into some poses, and find out how limited it was in terms of articulation and mobility. For my money, especially if you're going to be paying, upwards of like $80, including shipping, you're probably better off finding like some sort of SH Figuarts Venom, or I believe Revoltech is supposed to be releasing an Agent Venom, and there's some other third-party manufacturers that are actually working on developing some Agent Venom action figures. So I would probably go that route, just because you're going to buy a $70 to $80 figure that just doesn't have the modern flair of Marvel Legends action figures. Very frustrating. However, it is a phenomenal character. Agent Venom has been a part of some phenomenal comic book runs. So even though this particular figure doesn't live up to at least my personal expectations, The character himself, I think, is an absolute must have and an absolute classic in any Spider-Man display or collection. Let's move on to the third spot on today's list, where I decided to slot in the Venomized Punisher from 2019, which you would only receive if you were part of the Marvel Unlimited Plus subscription. And very similar to the Agent Venom, this particular figure had also a very outdated old body mold that they were just reusing and repainting. In my personal opinion, this kind of seemed like somewhat of just a throw-in for you to subscribe to the service. Nonetheless, because there aren't millions of people being subscribed to this service, the figure did become somewhat rare and difficult to obtain. Brand new in mint condition. You can find quite a few listings. However, most of these are going to be opened and already displayed, and some of the joints might not be as tight as you want them to be. So if you really want the full experience, you're probably gonna have to fork over some Benjamins. Well, maybe not some Benjamins, but definitely some Abraham Lincolns, because I've seen this figure go for as high as $80. Now, the main reason that I decided to put this one in this particular spot is just because of how difficult it is to find actual listings where you can purchase it. Like, for example, on eBay, I believe there were only like 2 or 3 live listings, and almost all of them were used. There might have been like one brand new one. For those of you guys that don't know, it didn't actually come in like packaging. They kind of just shipped it to you in like a generic box, and then you opened it, and then I believe the figure was like in a small little plastic bag. It's probably a good idea to buy this one brand new, but I think as time goes by, it's only going to gain more and more value simply because of how limited it was. But let's move on to our second spot, and this couldn't be a top 5 Venom Marvel Legends list without including the retro carded Hasbro Pulse exclusive Venom. And for those people that have kept track of this particular figure, it's kind of fluctuated here and there, but for the most part, you're gonna have to pay well over $100, sometimes even as high as $150. Just depends on the era, or I should say the time frame that you're purchasing it. What I will say is that we have seen a lot of the overseas manufacturers, a lot of these third-party knockoffs get their hands on the body mold somehow, and so these are being reproduced for a fraction of the price that Hasbro was manufacturing them for. So I'm not sure if that's going to have an effect on the overall price of these figures, and it's going to be even harder and harder in the near future to be able to tell the difference between one that is directly from Hasbro and one that is a knockoff. I'm going to assume that if it's brand new in packaging, it's a lot easier, but if it's opened, I think it's going to get a lot more difficult. And for that reason, I think this figure won't be top 5 for very long, especially if it's difficult to tell which one is the original. But this is a phenomenal figure. As I said, it was a Hasbro Pulse exclusive, came in the retro carded packaging, but it also had a shipper box, all black with fantastic box art. To a lot of people, this is kind of like the prototypical go-to Venom in their display, but it's really up to personal opinion and personal taste, because this does have like that extra cell shading that some people just absolutely despise and some people love. So it's just a matter of personal perspective. Personally, I think it's a fantastic figure to pick up, although in terms of like opening it and displaying it, there are a number of other options that you can go with that actually come with better accessories and slightly better posability. The most expensive, it goes in the second spot for today. Let's move on to the top spot on today's list, the most expensive Venom Marvel Legend out there. And yes, guys, we are talking about the Spider-Man 3 Venom Marvel Legend action figure, all the way back from 2007. Yes, completely outdated action figure, completely outdated technology, body mold, everything that you can throw out there, but this is an iconic classic design, for especially for people that were big fans of the Raimi and Tobey Maguire era, which I personally consider myself to be one of those. What's insane about this figure is there are not that many listings at the moment. All of the ones that I could find, or at least a majority of them that were like in card, like in packaging, were all sold. So that just gives you an idea of how scarce, how rare, and how coveted these figures are. And it's worth mentioning, I probably should have started with this, it does have a Sandman Build-A-Figure for that 2007 wave, so I believe that definitely added a lot of value to the figure. But even if you wanted an opened one in really good condition, you're probably still gonna have to pay around like $60 to $70 for one that's only been displayed, that's, you know, owned by an adult collector. So a brand new one in packaging looks to be worth somewhere between the lines of like 130 all the way up to like 150, 160. Also depends on the packaging and what particular time frame you decided to buy these, because there was a time when Tobey Maguire's return to being Spider-Man really spiked a lot of these old school figures up. So just keep an eye on it. It's definitely a figure that you're gonna have to spend a little bit more for. As I mentioned, iconic design, one of the best Spider-Man trilogies of all time. Not only that, but also the Sandman Build-A-Figure. It's going to continue to add value. It's stayed pretty consistent for the most part. You're going to have to pay roughly about like 150 for one in really good condition in packaging, and then one out of packaging anywhere from like $50 to $70, also depending on the condition. But there you guys have it, the top 5 most expensive Marvel Legend Venom action figures out there. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed the content, you found any value, hit the like button, subscribe. Let me know what your favorite Venom Marvel Legends action figure is of all time. Very curious to see what you guys have to say. Stay tuned. A lot more content coming at you guys as always. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.